Smoke on the Water has been heard by more people than almost any other rock song in history. It peaked at number 4 on the US Billboard Hot 100 in the summer of 1973. Every guitar student who has ever walked into a music shop has played that riff. Teachers sometimes ban it. The employees hate it. The joke about it is now older than most of the people making the joke. And yet, if you ask serious Deep Purple fans what their best song is, Smoke on the Water almost never wins. That's not revisionism. That's not contrarianism. That's a genuine critical gap. The most famous Deep Purple song and the best Deep Purple song are two different things, and they have been for over 50 years. This video is the case for what the best one actually is, and it commits to a specific answer. Before making any argument against it, you have to be clear about what Smoke on the Water is and why it matters. The song was recorded in December 1971 in Montreux, Switzerland, in the immediate aftermath of a fire that destroyed the casino where Deep Purple had been set to record. Roger Glover came up with the title. The words were written quickly, almost conversationally, to describe what happened to them. Glover himself described the whole thing in a 2011 interview with The Quietus. It was an afterthought in a way. The words got written very quickly. They're almost conversational. No attempt to make them poetic or to make them rhyme cleverly or anything like that. Not a lot of thought went into it. That line is not a criticism of the song. It's a description of what the song is, a document, a piece of reportage set to a riff. Ritchie Blackmore has explained that the four-note sequence is based on Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. He described it as playing them backwards and forwards. Ian Pace said the remarkable thing about the riff is that somebody hadn't done it before, because it's so gloriously simple and wonderfully satisfying. It became a hit because of that simplicity, not despite it. Released as a single in May 1973, over a year after Machine Head came out, it reached number 4 in the US and number 2 in Canada. The album went back into the top 10. The band was suddenly famous in America in a way that they hadn't been before. And then Smoke on the Water ate everything around it. It became the song at every concert, the song every journalist asked about, the song on every compilation and every radio station. It became, in the minds of people who don't know Deep Purple's catalog, synonymous with Deep Purple itself. That conflation between a band's most famous song and the band's best work is exactly the problem this video is here to address. There is a category of song that exists because what it means to a culture rather than what it achieves musically. Smoke on the Water belongs to that category. That's not dismissal, it's a description. The evidence for this is in the song itself. Machine Head is a 7-track album. The other tracks, Highway Star, Maybe I'm a Leo, Pictures of Home, Never Before, Lazy, Space Truckin', each demonstrates something that the band can do that Smoke on the Water doesn't. Highway Star opens the album at full throttle and runs for 6.5 minutes with separate solo sections that function almost like movements. Pictures of Home is a wild rock shuffle. Lazy is a 12-bar showcase where 5 musicians with completely different instincts find a shared language. Smoke on the Water, for all its power as a cultural artifact, is structurally one of the simplest things on the album. It has a riff, 2 verses, a guitar solo, and a chorus. The song tells a story, and it tells it well, but it doesn't push any member of the band beyond the limit of what they can do. It does not ask anything difficult of Gillan's voice. It does not require John Lord to compete with Ritchie Blackmore for space in the mix. It does not push Ian Pace into anything technically adventurous. Smoke on the Water became famous because of what happened before they recorded it, and because the riff is one of the most instantly identifiable sounds in rock history. Those are not the same things as artistic achievement. The question of what Deep Purple's best song is has to be answered on different terms: compositional ambition, performance demands, the degree to which the song requires every member of the band to operate at or near their ceiling. Apply those criteria and you get a different answer. The answer is Child in Time. Not the album version alone, though the album version is the foundation. The full argument runs across both the 1970 studio recording and the many live versions, including on Made in Japan, which many fans treat as the definitive performance. But both matter for different reasons. Here's what Child in Time achieves that no other Deep Purple song does. Deep Purple in Rock was released on June 5, 1970. Child in Time is the longest track on that album, over 10 minutes. And it was, at the time of its release, the most architecturally ambitious piece of music that hard rock had produced. Louder Sound described it as hard rock's first truly epic song. And the timing matters. It preceded Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven by more than a year. Stairway to Heaven was released on November 8, 1971. Child in Time was already in the live set in 1969. This is not a claim that Child in Time influenced Stairway to Heaven. That cannot be verified from a primary source. But the chronology matters because it frames the song correctly. Child in Time did not arrive into a genre that already had this kind of ambition. It helped create the space for that ambition to exist. Roger Glover describes the song's structure plainly. Ritchie and John both wanted a solo. The entire middle section of Child in Time, the extended instrumental passage that makes up the structural centerpiece of the song, exists because Blackmore and Lord would not share. What resulted from that creative friction is one of the most defining musical arguments in rock. There is one more thing worth saying about Child in Time before the argument moves on, because someone in the comments will bring it up if the video doesn't. John Lord did not invent the organ figure at the center of the song. He borrowed it. Specifically from Bombay Calling, It's a Beautiful Day, a 1969 San Francisco psychedelic rock track that uses a nearly identical ascending organ line. Ian Gillan has acknowledged that directly. This is not a scandal, it's the context. The history of rock music is a history of musicians hearing something and doing something else with it. What Lord took was a melodic fragment. What he built around it, the three-movement architecture, the harmonic framework that holds Blackmore and Pace and Glover together for 10 minutes, that's not borrowed from anyone. The organ figure is the seed, and Child in Time is the tree. The fact that it started somewhere else makes what Lord did with it more interesting, not less. Ian Gillan described singing Child in Time as an Olympic event. In an interview with Spain's Rock FM, he said, "I always thought of Child in Time not as a song, but more like an Olympic event. It was so challenging, but yeah, when I was young, it was effortless." He stopped singing it around 1995 and last really performed it in 2002 and has refused to do it again. In his words, better not to do it badly, better not to do it. He did not retire Smoke on the Water. He did not retire Highway Star. He retired the song that cost him the most. That is the clearest possible signal from the artist himself about which performance represented his ceiling. You do not stop doing the thing that is easy. Roger Glover has said Made in Japan remains the album he is most proud of. It was just one of those moments in time where everything inspired and came together to make a great live album. And that's something I'm still very, very proud of. Totally live and totally real, and it still stands out today. The version of Child in Time on that record is not a recreation of the studio version. It's a complete re-examination of the same material in real time. The improvisational middle section extends beyond the studio template. The band is not playing the song, they are living it. And then there is Lars Ulrich. Metallica's drummer told Rolling Stone that Child in Time is Deep Purple's most iconic moment, and that he has heard it 92,000 times, and it never sounds anything less than great. He said most iconic moment, not Smoke on the Water. Highway Star is the most representative Deep Purple song. It had speed, it has the guitar organ dual solo structure, and it has, well, Ian Gillan singing about a car at the top of his range. And it was written in approximately a very few minutes on a tour bus going to Portsmouth as a demonstration of how the band worked. Roger Glover confirmed that story directly in The Quietus. It is also a song that, 50 years later, still generates a specific kind of audience electricity that Glover has described as the same freshness as when we played it years ago. But representative is not the same as best. Highway Star is the best summary of what Deep Purple is. Child in Time is the best thing that Deep Purple ever did. Those are different claims, and they can both be true simultaneously. Child in Time asks more of every person on stage. It asks Gillan for a vocal performance that he has described as an athletic event and eventually had to stop doing. It asks Blackmore and Lord to resolve a genuine creative argument within the structure of a single song. It asks Pace to hold a 10-minute piece together through shifts in tempo and density that would lose a lesser drummer. It asks Glover to provide a foundation stable enough for two soloists to compete without the whole thing collapsing. And it delivers on all of those demands every time. The cultural record of Deep Purple is dominated by Smoke on the Water because that's how cultural records work. The simplest, most accessible artifact rises to the surface and stays there. That's a true thing about how music spreads. But the catalog of Deep Purple is not defined by that song. It is defined by what the band could do when they were genuinely trying to make something that none of them had heard before. In June 1970, they made Child in Time. Nothing else in the catalog touches it. That is the answer.